everyone, welcome to the Hindu Current Affairs for Beginners by Law Excellence. First, let us see answers for the yesterday's questions. The first question is, National Company Law Appellate Tribunal serves as the appellate authority for hearing appeals against the decisions, directions or orders passed by which among the following? It is the Competition Commission of India, Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India, Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority of India. It is not this IRDAI, but it is the National Company Law Tribunal. Even the directions or orders passed by National Company Law Tribunal can be challenged in this National Company Law Appellate Tribunal if the person is not satisfied with the tribunal's decision. So as only 1 and 2 are correct, the answer here is B, 1 and 2 only. The next question is 2x2 dialogue mechanism that focuses on strategic and defense relations of the countries involved will involve which key ministries? It involves the External Affairs Ministry and the Defense Ministry. These are the key ministries that participates in this 2x2 dialogue mechanism. So the answer here is B. Now let's start our today's session, and these are all the topics which we are going to cover in our today's video. Our first article is Election Commission. No names removed based on draft NRC. This article comes under GS paper 2 under the topic of governance. See here in this article, the Election Commission of India is stating before the Supreme Court that exclusion of names of the persons from draft National Registry of Citizens in Assam is not going to affect their voting rights in the upcoming Lok Sabha polls because their names were featured in the electoral rolls. Why is this in news? Because a petition was filed by two people, Gopal Seth and Susanta Sen, who were the residents of Assam, fearing that the people might lose their voting rights because of the ongoing exercise of National Registry of Citizens. And this petition has highlighted about 5 categories of people. These are those 5 categories of persons whose names were deleted from the voter list, but their names were included in this draft NRC, which is published on July 30 of 2018. And it also includes people whose names were not included in the complete draft of NRC, but they filed claims for inclusion of their names in it. And it also includes people who have been declared as foreigners by Foreigners Tribunal as well as Guwahati High Court. But this order was stayed in the Apex Court. And the other thing is people who had already been declared as foreigners, but these declarations were set aside by the Apex Court. And it also includes people whose names were not being included in this draft National Registry of Citizens, but other members of their families, including parents, were included in this NRC. And these people whose names were not included, they have filed claims for inclusion of their names. So a petition was filed in the Supreme Court fearing that these 5 categories of people might lose their voting rights because of this ongoing National Registry of Citizens. So, in order to address these fears, the Election Commission has assured that though there is exclusion of names of persons from the draft NRC in Assam, it is not going to affect their voting rights in the upcoming Lok Sabha polls. And the Supreme Court has asked the Election Commission to provide data about the addition and deletion of names from this voter list as revised in January for 2017, 18 and 2019. Now, from the prelims point of view, what is important from this article is what is this National Registry of Citizens? This National Register of Citizens is the list of Indian citizens in Assam. It is a list of Indian citizens in Assam but not all over the country. And this was prepared in 1951 based on the census of 1951. And Assam is the only state that is having this National Register of Citizens. This National Register of Citizens is being updated in order to remove the illegal migrants. In order to remove the illegal migrants who migrated into Assam from Bangladesh and neighboring regions. Recently, Assam has released the final draft of this NRC, which included nearly 1.9 crore names out of a total applications of 3.29 crore. Now let us see the background of this issue. The NRC was last updated in Assam in 1951 only. Then it has recorded that 80 lakh citizens in the state. But from then the process of illegal migration and this illegal migrants in Assam has become a debated issue. A public interest litigation, a PIL, was filed in Supreme Court in order to remove these illegal voters from the electoral rolls of Assam and preparation of NRC as required under the Citizenship Act of 1955 and its rules. Then in 1979, the All Assam Students Union has launched a 6-year agitation demanding to identify and deport the illegal migrants. This agitation got ended in 1985 with this Assam Accord. Then, according to this, who is a citizen of Assam? Post Assam Accord, even the Citizenship Act of 1955 has got amended. According to that, all Indian origin people, including people from Bangladesh who entered Assam before January 1st of 1966 will be considered as citizens of Assam. And those who came between this January 1st, 1966 and March 25th of 1971, they can get citizenship after registering themselves and living here for 10 years. And those who entered after March 25th of 1971 has to be deported according to this Assam Accord, and only the people who enter in these dates will be considered as citizen of Assam. The next article is we cannot kill jobs in cracker industry. This article comes under GS paper 2 under the topic of governance, and it also comes under GS paper 3 under the topic of employment. See here, this article is all about the Supreme Court has asked the central government to give it a comparative study. On pollution that is caused by firecrackers and pollution due to automobiles. Because the court had felt that vehicular pollution is the major cause of toxic elements in the air. Metros are worst affected by vehicular pollution and diesel automobiles. But in the last year, in October, the Supreme Court has banned these firecrackers. But this occupation, this firecracker industry is legal and it is a licensed occupation. So now by banning these firecrackers, hundreds of citizens, they have become unemployed now. So now the Supreme Court is asking what about their rights? And we can't leave them hungry, because for an occupation which is legal and duly licensed, how can we stop this employment? So the Supreme Court has asked the central government to bring in a comparative study regarding how much pollution these firecrackers were causing and how much pollution is being caused by these automobiles. The next article is to serve the governed. This article comes under GS paper 2 under the topic of polity and governance. So this entire article is all about how this Official Secrets Act is irrelevant. What is this Official Secrets Act? This Official Secrets Act is a generic term which refers a law which is invented by the British and then exported across the Commonwealth. Now, this law is designed to keep certain kinds of information confidential. This law is to keep certain information confidential, and that information involves the state affairs, diplomacy, national security, and other state secrets. Across multiple countries, this Official Secret Acts follows a similar pattern. This will classify certain categories of information as official secrets. And then if this official secrets and if the provisions of this act were violated, then there will be a stiff penalties for sharing or disseminating or publishing that information. Now, when it comes to our India's Official Secrets Act, this dates back to 1923. So it's the creation of the colonial regime. This act includes the penalties for, here we have categorized some information. Here the penalties will be there for spying, which includes even approaching or being in the vicinity of a prohibited place and publishing any sketch or any plan that might be useful to the enemy. Then it will punish the communication of any information that is in contravention to this Official Secrets Act. That might affect the security of the state or affect the friendly relations with the foreign states. And it will punish the people who will knowingly receive this information. So this provision clearly talks about the investigative journalism. That means this act will punish even the journalists if they obtain any information that is categorized under this official secrets. The next article is Final Showdown. This article comes under GS paper 2 under the topic of international relations. The Islamic State, which has controlled the borders, lots of territories in the Iraq and Syria border, is now fighting for half a square kilometer in the eastern Syria. So the Syrian Democratic Forces, the Kurdish-led rebel group that is assisted by United States, they have blocked a village, a Syrian village, where nearly 500 Islamic State jihadists along with 4,000 women and children were caught. So we should know what is this Islamic State in Iraq and Syria. What is this Islamic State in Iraq and Syria? ISIS. The Islamic Jihadist group is an unrecognized terror outfit which is based in Iraq and Syria. And this group has made international headlines and it emerged as one of the most dangerous terror organization like Al-Qaeda and Taliban. It maintains a stronghold near the borders of Eastern Mediterranean region, Lebanon, Israel, Palestine, Jordan, Cyprus and southern Turkey. The main goal of this ISIS is to establish a caliphate in the Sunni dominated areas of this Iraq and Syria, which can be ruled by a caliph. So students, from this article, what is mainly important here is, here there is mention of some of the cities like Raqqa, Azor, all these were mentioned. So in our previous year's questions, if we see, they have given list of cities and the cities recently mentioned in news and their location in the match the following type. So whenever there is a new city that appears in the continuously appearing in the paper, just note it down and where it is located. The next article is D-Day for Azhar's UNSC listing. All eyes on China. This article comes under GS paper 2 under the topic of international relations. So here this entire article is talking about listing this Masood Azhar in this UNSC banned list. What is that list? It is the 1267 Al-Qaeda Committee. In the United Nations Security Council, there are 3 committees that deals with this counter-terrorism. In that, one is this Al-Qaeda Sanctions Committee, which is also known as 1267 Sanctions Committee. This committee will look at the implementation of the measures against individuals and the entities that were associated with these terrorist activities, that is this Al-Qaeda. What does these sanctions imply? See here, the sanctions will result in a travel ban, assets freeze and an arms embargo. Here, assets freeze in the sense it will make mandatory that all the states to freeze without any delay the funds and other financial assets or economic resources of this designated individual or an entity. For example, now Jaish-e-Mohammed is designated as a terrorist organization. So it is an entity. Now its leader Masood Azhar, he has to be designated as a terrorist under this UNSC. This is the India's bid. So Once this JAM is already a banned institute, and this Masood Azhar, if they are once entered into this list, then their assets will be frozen. Next, travel ban. This will prevent the entry of this Masood Azhar and the Jaish-e-Mohammed into or transit by all the states through their territories. There will be a travel ban on these people. And what is this arms embargo? This will require all the states to prevent direct or indirect supply, sale and transfer from their territories or by their nationals outside their territories or using their aircrafts. So it will prevent this supply of arms and related material of all the types like spare parts, technical advice, assistance or training related to military activities to these designated individuals and entities if they are listed in this UNSC 1267 sanctions list. The next article is UK yet to act on our requests. This article comes under GS paper 3 under the topic of internal security, and also it comes under GS paper 2 under the topic of international relations. From this article, now we are going to see about a concept known as mutual legal assistance treaty. What is this mutual legal assistance treaty? It is an agreement between two countries with an aim to collect and exchange the information in an attempt to implement public laws or criminal laws. And in particular, this law is helpful in tax matters. How this will help is this treaty, it will provide mutual assistance in preventing, investigation and prosecution of crimes, service of summons and other judicial documents, execution of warrants and other judicial commissions, and tracing, restraints, forfeiting the assets, confiscating of the proceeds and instruments of crime. Is this a new concept? No. India has signed this with many countries. It has signed this treaty with Australia, UK, US, Spain, Egypt, Canada, Bulgaria. With all these countries, India has signed this mutual legal assistance treaty. The next article is Supreme Court questions government on tracking assets. This article comes under GS paper 2 under the topic of polity. Here, the Supreme Court has questioned the government why it didn't set up a permanent mechanism to track unnatural increase in the assets of candidates. And the court has made the government accountable for not taking any action in the last few years to track this unnatural increase in the assets of the candidates, and asked the Legislative Department Secretary to reply in 2 weeks. And the Supreme Court has also asked another thing. Why this Form 26, which every candidate should fill, why this form didn't contain a declaration by the candidate that he or she doesn't suffer from disqualification under any provision of Representation of People's Act of 1951. That means every candidate, every electoral candidate should file this Form 26. But in this Form 26, there is no declaration. There is no column for declaring that he or she, whoever is contesting, will not get disqualified under this RPA Act of 1951. Now, let us see the background of this. Here, the section 75A of this Representation of People's Act of 1951, it wants the candidates, whoever is standing for the election, to provide the information related to movable and immovable property that is owned by them as well as their spouses. And these details of the assets has to be furnished even to the Election Commission of India. Recently, an NGO called Lok Prahari has filed a petition in the Supreme Court seeking a thorough investigation into the Member of Parliament, MPs and MLAs' disproportionate assets. And this has claimed that the lawmakers' assets has got increased. Followed by this, The Central Board of Direct Taxes has filed a report in the Supreme Court that there is a substantial hike in the assets of 7 Lok Sabha MPs and 98 MLAs across the country. And these discrepancies over these assets were identified as per an arrangement between the Election Commission of India and the Central Board of Direct Taxes under this Income Tax Act of 1961. So, the Supreme Court is asking the government to set up a permanent mechanism to track these unnatural increase in the assets of the electoral candidates. The next article is India's biodiversity rich zones also hotspots of human impacts. This article comes under GS paper 3 under the topic of environment, and the subtopic here is conservation. There is an international journal known as PLOS Biology, which is related to biological science. Here a study was published and it found out that human impacts on species is there across 84% of our Earth's surface. Some of the human impacts that were mentioned in this article is due to habitat loss of habitat, and due to roads. There is huge impact of roads on this biodiversity, because we have been hearing about this man-animal conflict, and also we have been hearing about this animal or elephant corridors, where most of these animals were getting affected due to these roads being passed through their corridors. And the other reason is this croplands. There is huge impact of these croplands on these threatened species. And we know the other reasons like hunting, poaching, converting these lands, converting the natural habitats of these species for agriculture. These are some of the human impacts that affected lots of species. In this study, India is ranked at 16th position for impacting 35 species on an average. And here the tropical forest, the Southeast Asian tropical forest, including India's biodiversity rich Western Ghats, Himalayas, Northeast, were also there in this category, which had major human impact on the species. So what is the purpose and what is the need of these for identifying these areas? The only reason is it helps in conservation. In this article, we have been seeing about two terms, hotspots and cool spots. What is this hotspot? Hotspots are the richest and the most threatened reservoirs of plants and animal life of the earth. These are the richest ones and they are the most threatened reservoirs for both plant and animal life. They have maximum number of endemic species. Endemic species in the sense they are present only in this region. These hotspots will have the maximum number of endemic species. The Western Ghats and Eastern Himalayas are the two hotspots of India. In order to be qualified as a hotspot, a region should meet two conditions. One is species endemism. Here the region must contain at least 1500 species of vascular plants as endemics, and the degree of threat. Here the region should have lost at least 70% of their original habitat. Then only that region will be considered as a hotspot. And another term we have seen in this article is cool spots. What are these cool spots? These are the areas where though they have the threatened species, but they will persist here. They will survive in these cool spots. This is due to their intact habitat, by protecting their habitat. Now let's see a question on this National Register of Citizens. Try to answer this and tomorrow we'll see the explanation for this question. Thank you.